A 2015 FDI attractiveness report by Ernst Young ranks the U.S. as the top source of foreign direct investment into Kenya, accounting for 15.3% of all capital inflows in 2014. CNBC Africa now takes a look at the steps being taken by businesses in these two countries to deepen these ties.
Foreign direct investment in Kenya increased by 89.9 billion shillings in 2014, which is an all-time high according to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. Furthermore, the 2015 FDI Attractiveness Report by EY notes that the US accounted for most of these inflows, claiming 15.3% of the total amount. On the back of this, the Kenya Private Sector Alliance is seeking to strengthen business ties with the US Chamber of Commerce.
The US Chamber of Commerce has been a good partner of KEPSA, and the US Chamber of Commerce Kenya is a member of KEPSA and it's also a member of the US Chamber. So we already have a working relationship, but the MOU is to stipulate areas that we really can work together that are very identified so that we grow business between US and Kenya. There's a lot of interest with US companies here. The AGOA was renewed not too long ago, and we've not taken advantage of all the AGOA lines. There are very many, and we've taken not even half of that. And so this is to start saying, how do we help the American companies who are coming to the country? How do we advocate for a better business environment for them? The same thing on the other side.
What we're really looking for is, as from the Chamber and the US Africa Business Center, is to continue to drive coordination and capability between the US companies and African companies. So in Kenya specifically, KEPSA presents a real capability because of their ability to really be an impactful private sector function, especially in Kenya with the government. And one of the things we need is advocacy around what business and private sector needs to do from the government perspective, as well as what we would like the government to do. So I think the combination of the two of the organizations will work well together in trying to drive that.
Since 2007, US companies have launched 700 FDI projects across Africa whose monetary value is about $52.7 billion. In 2014 alone, the companies not only launched 23 projects in South Africa, but also increased investment in other continental hubs such as Kenya.
The US companies are investing in very diverse areas, from energy to health to infrastructure and security. And so there's a lot of areas where they'll need facilitation in terms of engaging with government, where they need government facilitation, and that's where we come in, because we work with government as a partner in the ease of doing business. And so that's really where we'll be looking at. We'll be working a lot even on anti-corruption. We're already working on that together with the US government, and so it's important that we continue with that.
If you look at what Kenya's done, having a vision 2030, a plan, you have a private sector alliance, which is KEPSA, you have CAM, Kenya Association of Manufacturing, Can Invest. So you have enough organizations that are focused on building the private sector and working with the government and really increasing the economic activity. That's what you look for when you want to invest in countries. So from a Kenya standpoint, I think it's very well positioned. And I think you see that in the numbers of foreign direct investment, which were released recently. And all of those are important. And I think that's how, no matter what country it is, that's what you want to see, is that alignment between private sector, having the private sector have a voice as well as government listening.
Among the recent FDI inflows by a US-based company is a $13 million investment by General Electric into Kenya's health sector. The multinational plans to set up a localized human capital development institute targeting over 10,000 healthcare professionals in Kenya and East Africa by the year 2020.
Well, from a GE perspective, we have a number of investments across the region. And from manufacturing to assembly to sales offices, skills building, etc. So we're continuing to progress. We've been investing, probably $200 to $300 million at this point in time, and we'll continue to do so. But one of the key things that we felt important, and one of the reasons why, I'm become chairman of this organization, is that I feel that being in Africa and representing the US Africa business center, and trying to drive more U.S. businesses here will help, again, more investment in Africa by U.S. businesses.
The business communities in the two countries are also exploring ways to bridge their trade deficit. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, the value of Kenyan imports from the U.S. was $943 million in 2015 alone, while Kenya sold goods worth $573 million, leaving a deficit of $370 million in favor of the U.S. However, Kenyan businesses are now looking for ways to narrow the gap by exploring duty-free exports access to the U.S. market through the African Growth Opportunity Act, AGOA.
We are talking to a lot of our investors here and telling them about AGOA and what opportunities are there. For a long time, they only thought it was textiles, and so we are looking at all the other lines, you know, of AGOA and trying to do that. We're also working closely with both governments on our direct flights, because that will really open the market. You know, we'll be able to do horticulture, especially like flowers. You know, we do a lot with Europe because of our direct flights to Europe, but it's been a bit hard because of no direct flights to the US and all that. So those are the areas we want to look at, and you know, we want to be able to have American companies source more from Kenya, you know, in all areas.
Oh, I think the key thing there is to become part of a supply chain. So if the Kenyan businesses locally here can become part of the supply chain, and whether it's our company or other companies that then use the AGOA, you know, as a mechanism to get exports back to, or exports from here into the United States, would be helpful. So I think, though, and these are all mechanisms that are there to facilitate that. And I think it's up to the Kenyan businesses to understand what's available and then to take advantage of it.